Yes, welcome back to another session with 33 Audits. Thank you guys so much for joining. Today, I will be reviewing diagram creation and showing you some quick tips of how it's easy for you to create diagrams. Before we get into how to create them and my flow for creating them, I wanted to talk about the benefits of why you should create diagrams when you're auditing. First off, all the top auditors do this. Owen from Guardian Labs, Team Cho, who else? Like tons of people that create diagrams when they are auditing, because it gives you a high level overview of the system, of different function calls, of execution flows, and that's where you really start to think like a hacker. It's kind of hard to know, hey, does this function need to have a modifier on it, or does it need to have some type of validation on it if I'm just looking at the code. However, if I'm looking at a high level overview of an execution flow, I can identify the places where, as a user or as an attacker, I guess in this sense, I can enter the system and potentially manipulate the system to do something that I want it to do that it's not normally doing. So I'm going to show you very quickly how I make these. First off, you want to just have the code downloaded and ready. First off, you want to have the code downloaded and ready on your local machine. Okay. In this case, I have the Maya DAO audit that just started last week, finishes this Saturday. And as you can see, I've been running some tests, and I've been running them in super verbose mode so that I can get these deep stack traces and follow the execution flows. Okay. In this example, I'm going to show you the test global. Let me see if I actually have add bridge agent in here, because that would be call out and bridge. Oh, okay, cool. We have the call out and bridge function here. So let's say hypothetically I find a test for this function. Call out and bridge is how you deposit into the system in this specific code base. You use call out and bridge, and essentially it'll start the execution flow and bridge your tokens from the local branch to what they call the root branch in Maya DAO, just another branch, another L2 or another EVM branch. In this case, you can see here that when call out and bridge is invoked, it's invoked on the root bridge agent, and then it has a whole execution flow that it goes through here, right? It calls a bunch of different other functions, and in some cases it even moves to a whole different file. So right here you basically have a ton of alpha when you're trying to build your diagram, right? I can basically say, okay, root bridge agent, call out and bridge is invoked, and then that calls the root port, get local token from global, which then calls root port, get underlying token from global. Whoops. And it calls all these other functions, right? So, and then what you can do is you can simply turn that into a diagram, right? So in this sense, it's very easy to follow. The user calls a bridge agent, it calls call out and bridge. First, it invokes create deposit function on the branch bridge agent, which then calls the branch port, transfer tokens to depositor. And then the second thing that it does, or the second execution that it does, is it calls execute with deposit on root bridge agent, so on and so forth, right? It has this entire flow. It goes from 1 to then 2, calls this again, and then goes to 3, and it finally transfers the tokens to the other branch. The details don't matter here. What I'm trying to explain to you as a high level is these diagrams are going to allow you to be able to understand systems quicker, attack systems quicker, and also right now I have the user flow, right? But if I wanted to say, okay, let's say I'm an attacker, it seems like I can maybe, what if I could call bridge to root without actually having to create a deposit? So let's see if I can enter the system somewhere in here and directly call bridge to root, so that way I could just mint tokens, free tokens, right? Or what if I could call root bridge agent? Okay, bridge to root isn't external. All these functions are internal, or all these functions have modifiers on them, so they can only be called by, the root bridge agent. So what if I can enter the system via root bridge agent? And then this is kind of the process that you want to think. You start to dissect and break the entire system apart via the diagram and try to enter maliciously in an unexpected way. This is some pure alpha that I'm sharing with you. This is a way that you're going to find a ton of criticals, tons of high vulnerabilities. I suggest, if you have the time, obviously it's a bit harder in contests, but if you have the time, to draw as many of these as possible for as many of the external functions that you can, because it will give you some creative ideas and some creative attack vectors. Thanks for joining. It's another session with 33. Appreciate it. And feel free to like, subscribe, comment, follow, all that good stuff.